to be talking about Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. So it's two reasons, really. The first reason is because it's almost Lag BaOmer. It's going to be Lag BaOmer a couple nights. The second reason is because we've been talking about Rabbi Akiva, and we'll see that really Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai was Rabbi Akiva's prized student and passed over a lot of the teachings of Rabbi Akiva. So because of both of those things converging, I felt, okay, I have to give some time to Rabbi Shimon. And really, there's not enough time in the world to give to Rabbi Shimon and his Torah teachings, which are the loftiest we have. Again, Rabbi Shimon was not just one of the most frequently quoted sages in the Talmud, but also really the main source. He authored the main text in Jewish mysticism, Kabbalah. He authored the Zohar. In fact, Lag BaOmer, we'll talk maybe a little bit about Lag BaOmer at the end. The day in which Rabbi Shimon passed away was the day that he actually revealed the deepest Torah teachings of the Zohar. It's called the Idra Rabbah, the Idra Zuta, all on the day that he passed away. So Rabbi Shimon is an incredibly deep topic, an incredible tzaddik. There's very little we can really understand of him, but there are a lot of the facts and the teachings that he said we can at least gain a glimpse. So the first thing about Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Shimon was that he was the son of someone named Yochai, who apparently was a political or sort of like I guess what we'd call an asken, someone who worked on behalf of the Jewish community, was sort of a liaison maybe between the Jewish community and the government. I'm not exactly sure what that role might have looked like back then. But his father was an influential person, had influence even amongst the Romans. So this was during the time of the Roman occupation of Judea, of Israel. And the Jewish people were living very much in a time of persecution. The Romans made many laws forbidding Jewish practice, the most notable of which was that they prohibited learning Torah in public. That means any sage found to be teaching Torah in public was subject to imprisonment, execution, etc. So it was a very risky time to be a Torah student in Israel. Yet as it may, Rabbi Shimon became a very close student, a close Talmud of Rabbi Akiva. He learned to Rabbi Akiva for over a decade. He was a student. In fact, he was so close to Rabbi Akiva that Rabbi Akiva would refer to him as my son. They were so close, they had such a close relationship. Rabbi Akiva looked upon Rabbi Shimon as his son. And Rabbi Shimon said about Rabbi Akiva that I have the creme de la creme, the cream of Rabbi Akiva's teachings. I possess, I'm going to teach them. So you have to listen closely to Rabbi Shimon's teachings because they're really the most special parts of Rabbi Akiva's own teachings. So, like I said before, the Romans, this was during the time of Roman occupation. They forbade Torah study. And unfortunately, Rabbi Akiva would not cease his efforts to spread the Torah. And he was unfortunately imprisoned. And Rabbi Shimon, being his closest student, was very upset. How is he going to learn Torah anymore, being that his Rebbe, his teacher, was imprisoned? So he went to go visit the prison, essentially to beg Rabbi Akiva to continue teaching Torah even from prison. And Rabbi Akiva said, I can't. I'll be putting your life in danger. If I teach you Torah, the Romans are going to know, and it'll be putting your life in danger. So I refuse to teach you Torah. To which Rabbi Shimon responded, a very interesting thing. He said, if you don't teach me Torah, Rabbi Akiva, I'm going to tell my father, who has influence with the Romans, and he's going to trump up charges or something, convince them to have your charges increased or whatever's going to happen, and it's going to be much worse. Now, of course, Rabbi Shimon didn't really mean that. He wasn't really going to get in more trouble. He was just trying to express how he longed so badly to hear Rabbi Akiva's Torah teachings. To which Rabbi Akiva responded a very famous line. He says, more than the calf desires to drink, the mother cow desires to nurse. Meaning someone who is a true giver, someone who's who is at the level of Torah teachings or able to be involved in chesed and tzedakah, who has the ability to give, he wants that opportunity to give over of himself more even than the receiver wants to receive. So Rabbi Akiva was saying, I have so much Torah to give, I want to develop my students so much that it's much harder for me to resist from giving over Torah than it is for you to not get that Torah. Even so, says Rabbi Akiva, it's better for me to desist from teaching you so as to save your life. Because if I'll teach you Torah, you're going to end up getting in trouble too, and that won't be good for anybody. So Rabbi Akiva ended up not continuing teaching Torah after that point. So one of the famous disputes that Rabbi Shimon had was with Rabbi Yishmael. So they have a famous dispute. One of the main, what's a person's main goal in life? How should he structure his life so as to become the most productive, best Eved Hashem he can be? So Rabbi Yishmael said a person should be involved in both. He should be involved in learning Torah as much as he can. He should be involved in earning a living, be a man of the world who's able to earn a living, provide for his family. To which Rabbi Shimon responds, well, what's going to be with Torah? How can you spend so much time away from the Torah? Therefore, Rabbi Shimon said, okay, put blinders on. Don't think about how it's going to work out, how your livelihood's going to work out. Just put yourself completely immersed into Torah, and things will be figured out. So this was a very extreme dispute because Rabbi Yishmael advocated one sort of lifestyle, and Rabbi Shimon advocated a very extreme other lifestyle. And of course, Rabbi Shimon practiced what he preached. Rabbi Shimon would be immersed in Torah all day and all night, almost 24/7. I don't know if he ever took a break. In fact, it says about Rabbi Shimon, he was so immersed in Torah that he was even exempt from, I want to say it was from Kriya Shema, but I could be wrong. It might be he was exempt from davening. So don't quote me on this. Maybe someone will look it up and they'll correct me or tell me which way it is. But he was even exempt from certain mitzvahs because he was so immersed in Torah. So we see to the extent to which Rabbi Shimon was attached to the Torah, to the extent that he had his own opinion about how a person was supposed to live their life was the only Torah. No need to earn a livelihood. Focus yourself entirely on Torah. The sage Abaye in later generations said many people did like Rabbi Yishmael. They learned as much Torah as they could. They also earned a livelihood, and they were successful. And a few, they tried to do like Rabbi Shimon, but most weren't successful. So that's how some of the later sages sort of, it almost seems like, picked a side in this dispute. So what do we do in actuality? Okay, everyone has to know what's right for them, what their level of Amunah is, and what their background is, and how much they can really learn Torah, etc. That's not for me to get into right now. So on this topic, there's a story with Rabbi Shimon, Maisa, that one of his students made it big. He became very rich. One of his students became very, very wealthy. And the other students, noticing their peer, his new wealth, said, wow, this is great. We want to be wealthy too. So Rabbi Shimon said, okay, great. I'll make you guys all wealthy. So he took them outside the study hall into the valley. And he said, he made the valley filled with gold and jewels and diamonds and all of the most valuable things in the world. And he told the students, okay, everyone go and take. But you should know whatever you take is going to be deducted from your portion in the world to come. Needless to say, none of them actually took. So Rabbi Shimon's feeling on wealth, excess, maybe we'll say, was that a person shouldn't engage in these things. A person should have their focus for sure be on spirituality, on preparing themselves for the world to come and not getting distracted with the distractions of this world. So this brings us really to probably the most famous event in Rabbi Shimon's life. So Rabbi Shimon and a few of his peers, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi, were once sitting discussing the state of the Roman occupation. And Rabbi Yehuda remarked how he was thankful to the Romans in a certain sense. He appreciated the efforts they put in. They built bathhouses, roads, and they increased and benefited the infrastructure of Israel. So he was thankful to them. Rabbi Yossi remained silent, didn't say anything. But Rabbi Shimon says, you've got it all wrong. Everything the Romans are doing is for themselves. They're just selfish. And there's no reason to feel thankful to them. He was very not very positive towards the Roman occupiers. So there was another student sitting there named Yehuda ben Gerim. That was his name, Yehuda ben Gerim. And it says, after this conversation, Yehuda ben Gerim, he mentioned it to one of his friends, how about Rabbi Shimon's comments regarding the Roman Empire. He mentioned it offhand, maybe to one of his friends. So we know that the Gemara says, Chava Chavra Islay, this person has a friend, that person has a friend, and eventually the quote from Rabbi Shimon that he put for him putting down the Roman Empire made its way to the Romans themselves. And they weren't very happy. So they basically said, Rabbi Shimon, you are a dead man. As soon as we find you, we are going to execute you. So Rabbi Shimon had to flee. First, he went to a base measures. He went to a study hall where his wife would cook for him and provide for him. That only lasted so long. Once the search for him intensified, he had to flee outside, away from civilization, and he spent his time with his son Eliezer in a cave. And so he didn't have food available, he didn't have water available, but Rabbi Shimon, like we said earlier, was the true truster, true Baal B'tochen, had a real trust in Hashem, and he wasn't worried about how he would be provided for. And he devoted himself to the Torah in the cave. And it says Hashem made a miracle happen for Rabbi Shimon. That first a stream appeared in the cave, something very unnatural. And second, Hashem made a carob tree grow inside the cave without any exposure to light. That, of course, would be, according to nature, impossible. But Hashem made a miracle for Rabbi Shimon, so Rabbi Shimon was able to continue learning Torah with his needs provided for. So him and his son, Rabbi Eliezer, they would be in the cave. They only had one pair of clothing. So in order to make sure their clothing didn't wear out, they wouldn't wear clothing. Instead, they would bury themselves in the sand in the cave. They would bury themselves and continue learning Torah day in and day out. And that went on for 12 whole years. At which point, the prophet Eliyahu Hanavi came and informed them, you guys are able to leave the cave now. The Caesar has passed away. The Romans are no longer after you. So Rabbi Shimon felt safe. Okay, we're able to leave the cave. So they left the cave. They came back to civilization, and they were in for a shock. They saw people going about their business, going to the shops, carrying their wares. Rabbi Shimon said, how could it be people are forsaking the world to come for the vanities of this world? How could it be people are so focused on their business, on their livelihood, on getting what they need? Why are people so focused on that? They're forgetting about Olam Haba. They're forgetting about the world to come. Rabbi Shimon apparently was so upset, and I can imagine, maybe, I don't know if it really looked like this, but almost like laser beams were shooting out of his eyes, to the extent that he would look at someone and they would burn up instantly. And that's what would happen. He would look at these people going about their daily lives, just trying to earn an honest living, and these laser beams out of his eyes would burn them up. So Hashem got very upset. He said, did I bring you out of the cave to destroy the world? What are you doing? I don't want you to destroy my world. Go back to the cave. So Hashem sent them back to the cave, and they went back to the cave, and they stayed there another 12 months. Again, they were already there for 12 years. Now they're there for another 12 months, a total of 13 years, learning Torah. I'm sure they came out in order to do whatever they needed to do, but for most of the day they were buried in the sand. So this is what Hashem told them to do. He said, "Go back to your cave. You're clearly not ready to come out into and be a part of civilization." He went back another year, total of 13 years in the cave. He came out, and it seems like Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Shimon's son, still had that same fire, and whatever he looked at would get vaporized, basically. But Rabbi Shimon was able to revitalize whoever that happened to. It says that Rabbi Shimon got encouragement from something that he saw. He saw a person running home late on Friday afternoon in preparation for Shabbat, and he saw this person carrying 2 myrtle branches. And he asked, what are the two myrtle branches for? He said, one is for Shamor, one is for guard Shabbos, and the other is for Zachor, remember Shabbos, right? Shamor v'Zachor, those are 2 commandments, the two ways the Torah expresses the commandment to keep Shabbat, Zachor v'Shamor, guard and remember. And this person, as a remembrance to Zachor v'Shamor, he carried 2 myrtle branches. And Rabbi Shimon said, wow, look at your people, Hashem, who gives such honor to Shabbos. So Rabbi Shimon got encouragement from this event, from this thing, from this person that he observed, and he was able, it seems now, to go and live in peace with the world. But we see, of course, Rabbi Shimon, I guess you could say a little bit literally, was fire for Avodas Hashem, for Torah, for Olam Haba, for Yiras Shamayim. He was complete fire to the extent he was able to set people on fire, literally, for this. So it seems that Rabbi Shimon had to undergo a process where which he was able to become more comfortable with people acting on their level. Still, he said, if there are 2 righteous people in the entire world, if there are only 2, then it's me and Rabbi Eliezer. That's it. So that was Rabbi Shimon's worldview. So this was the story of Rabbi Shimon. Now we're going to talk maybe a little bit about one of the main legacies of Rabbi Shimon, which of course was the Zohar. So Rabbi Shimon, as we sort of already alluded to, was very engaged in the mystical aspects of the Torah. It says very interesting things that he would, in Zohar it says these things, that he would ascend to the heavenly academies and learn the secrets of the Torah there. It says the value of his Torah was such that even Hashem, Kaviyachol, would learn the Torah of Rabbi Shimon, whatever that means. So the importance of the Torah is such, the importance of the Zohar is such that there are statements in the Zohar that allude to the fact the Zohar itself is what is going to bring the Geula. The learning of the Zohar itself is what's going to bring the Geula for the Jewish people. On this point, one of the stories that occurred in the Gemara, there was once a discussion amongst the sages, and they were debating. One group said that the Torah would one day be forgotten from the Jewish people. One day they're not going to remember anymore. Not going to be any more yeshivas. People aren't going to go to the Beis Medrash anymore. No kohelim. We're not going to have Torah anymore. And Rabbi Shimon said, no, it's never going to happen. And he quoted a pasuk, he quoted a verse in Devarim, in Sefer Devarim. He said, Ki lo tishachach mi pi zaro. Because it will never be forgotten from the mouth of his offspring. Ki lo tishachach mi pi zaro. The Torah will never be forgotten from the mouth of his offspring. Meaning that the Jewish people are never going to forget the Torah. Ki lo tishachach mi pi zaro. Rabbi Shimon was so confident that there would always be Torah amongst the Jewish people, he was able to foresee that even through the most difficult of exiles, through occupations, pogroms, holocausts, jihad and terrorism, the one thing that would always remain is the Jewish people would have Torah. And this, essentially a prophecy that Rabbi Shimon was able to see this, that through all the difficulties the Jewish people would endure, there would always be yeshivas and kohelim. It said that after the war, after World War II, after the Holocaust, many people said, okay, Torah's done. The reform, the more liberal Jewish America said, okay, Orthodoxy is gone. There's no more future for Orthodoxy. And we see the tremendous rebuilding that the Jewish people have undergone, rebuilding Torah institutions. We spoke about this before, that the amount of yeshivas, the amount of people learning Torah all day surpasses what it's ever been in the past, which is something that, according to nature, should have been impossible. After 6 million people being murdered in Europe, that should have been impossible. But we see with our own eyes, this is what's happening in communities across the world. So Rabbi Shimon had this message. He says, "Kilo tishachach mipizaro." The Torah will never be forgotten from the mouth of his offspring. The mouth of, I guess maybe it's referring to Yaakov, and from the mouth of his offspring, the Jewish people will never forget the Torah. So one of the great Hasidic masters says the amazing thing. If you look at this pasuk, "Kilo tishachach mipizaro." So the pasuk says "lo." We're going to look right now. I just want to go through it with everyone. Everyone could either write it down on a piece of paper or just follow along with what I'm saying. This is a very interesting, amazing thing that one of the great Hasidic masters said. He says, if you look at the end of the end of each word, the last letter of each word, it says an amazing thing. Ki is the last word, the last letter in the word ki is a yud. The last letter in the word lo is an aleph. The last letter in the word tishachach is a ches. The last letter in the word mipi is another yud. And the last letter in the word zaro is a vav. So if you rearrange those letters, it spells Yochai, the father of Rabbi Shimon. Meaning Rabbi Shimon's father, Yochai, is alluded to in the verse, Kilo tishachach mipizaro, that the Torah will never be forgotten from his offspring. Whose offspring? Yochai's offspring. Because of the offspring of Yochai, Rabbi Shimon's father, which means Rabbi Shimon is the offspring we're talking about in the pasuk. Mipi, because of, you could read mipi not just from the mouth of, but because of mipi, zaro, because of Rabbi Shimon, because of the mystical secrets that he revealed, the Torah would never be forgotten from Klal Yisrael. So we have to ask ourselves, what is this amazing spiritual power that the Zohar has, that the deep secrets that Rabbi Shimon taught? What is this amazing power that they have that it would ensure not just that the Jewish people would never forget the Torah, but also, as I mentioned earlier, Zohar says that the Zohar, the schus of people learning the Zohar, that's what's going to bring the redemption, the Geula. What great power did this special sefer have? So I'm not sure I fully can express this or fully understand this, but the secrets of the Torah speak specifically to a person's neshama, to the essence of their self. When a person learns the secrets of the Torah, and they talk about how the neshama works and what the deeper reasons behind each mitzvah is, that speaks straight to the person's neshama. To the extent that it says, there's a statement in the Zohar that says that what a person can accomplish, a person can accomplish through 1 hour of study of Zohar, what would take a year to accomplish just by learning the pshat in the Torah, just by learning the simple meaning of the Torah. Now, of course, that's not to say we should stop learning the pshat in the Torah to go learn the secrets of the Torah. That's not what it means at all, because if a person doesn't go through the proper steps, he's not able to understand the secrets of the Torah. That's just not possible. So the special power that the Zohar has, that it can speak straight to the person's soul and ignite a fire in the person towards Hashem, towards avodas Hashem. And that brings us lastly to Lag BaOmer. We're a few days from Lag BaOmer, and it's Rabbi Shimon's Yartzeit. Now, normally a Yartzeit is a sad thing, yet this is one of the happiest days in the Jewish calendar. A million people go to Meron for Lag BaOmer. There's dancing, there's singing, there's celebrating like nothing you've ever seen before. But it's a Yartzeit. Usually people fast on a parent's Yartzeit. Yartzeit's a sad day. So why are we so happy on Rabbi Shimon's Yartzeit? So something we have to know. I'm going to say it quickly because I don't want to get too involved in it. But when it comes to a tzaddik, it says that a tzaddik, a person on a very, very high level in spirituality, is greater after he passes away than even when he's alive. It may have something to do with the fact that one of the things that Rabbi Shimon says is that when you learn the Torah of a person that's passed away, of a tzaddik that's passed away, his lips move in the grave. This is something Rabbi Shimon says. When you learn the Torah of a tzaddik, his lips move in the grave. That means to say that tzaddik is alive, is in a certain sense alive and still teaching Torah even after he's passed away. When you open his sefer, it's almost like you're actually learning the Torah from that tzaddik. So on a yahrzeit, each year the yahrzeit comes. It says this in the way I've been taught, is that a tzaddik is called a histalus. Histalik means to ascend. A tzaddik on his yahrzeit, the soul is ascending. It's in the process of ascending. It's being taught more and more secrets of the Torah up in Shemayim. So anyone who attaches themselves to that tzaddik, which is what people are doing alive ba'omer, also has a merit to experience a similar ascent. That they'll be able to learn now more Torah from that tzaddik, be able to understand more of the Torah from that tzaddik. So that's what people are celebrating on Lag BaOmer. And even though normally we think of a yahrzeit as a sad day, on this particular yahrzeit, because it's a tzaddik of such a caliber, Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, it's a day of celebration because we're celebrating the fact that we have his teachings. And with each passing year, another yahrzeit goes by, we're actually able to understand more of his Torah. So that's what I wanted to say about Rabbi Shimon. Some of these ideas might be new to people, confusing. I'm happy to speak with anyone about it, whatever they want to ask me. And I think we have about 15 minutes to minchos, or 15 minutes to minchos. I think it's the perfect time to stop now. And I thank everyone for tuning in.
Thank you very much.
If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to speak.
Thank you for preparing all of it.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, everybody.
His full name is
Shimon bar Yochai. Sometimes Ben Yochai. Bar and Ben means the same thing, right?
Yasher koach. See you soon.
See you soon.
I didn't realize he was responsible for the Zohar.
Yeah. He was owner of the Zohar.
There's so many other names associated with it.
Right.
Zohar.
So a lot of people are quoting the Zohar, but it was Rabbi Shimon's
Interesting.
magnum opus, I guess you'd say. He wrote others farm too, which is interesting. There are others farm that he wrote.
Okay.
He wrote his farm on halachic works regarding the Sefer, I think Bamidbar and Devarim. He wrote basically brises like
Okay.
from Bamidbar and Devarim. Could be wrong about Bamidbar, but I'm pretty sure it was at least Devarim. So he's clearly very, the greatest sage, one of the, one of the greatest sages ever lived.
He lived, this is the Roman times.
It was the Roman time, so it was basically soon after the destruction of the Second Temple. Yep. Okay, everyone, thank you for tuning